For our presentation today, we have Homeward, Life in the Year After Prison, Chapter 3 by Bruce Western. We're going to start with transitions. So some of the transitions of these individuals are going from solitary confinement and the mental health that comes with it to freedom. There is the struggle of older individuals being released after being locked up for so long. And these older individuals have a hard time learning how to adjust to everyday tasks and interactions in society. For one, the conduct in society is different outside of prison than it is on the inside. For instance, bumping into people inside would constitute standing up for yourself and perhaps showing dominance, where on the outside, people would apologize or sometimes even just keep walking. There is the feeling of stress, nervousness, and loneliness. Most of them reported with older men and women, and anxiety in crowds or public settings, and discomfort with the pace of life. Some of them are being released to friends and family or left to their own devices in shelters. And being transported by prison by the state was a vivid sign of the social isolation straight after incarceration that was linked to poor social integration 6 months later. Some, depending on how long they were in for, are unsure of how to work their technology. And while there is also the worry of their belongings being stolen in the shelters, they then have to learn how to establish themselves in the community, and this involves ties to families, a place to live, but sometimes they have no family. Or the family and friends that they do know or have are the same ones who were there when they got in trouble or helped them get into trouble, and a lot of them just spend a lot of time by themselves. Stable marriage was found to divert young men and women from careers in crime, although children who are part of parents who have been incarcerated are more likely to act out, have trouble in school, and become homeless after a parent is locked up. Prison disrupts the sequence of life stages from school to work to marriage and parenthood. Some of the struggles after release are experiencing difficulty with small tasks that are normal in life to us, like shopping and public transportation. They are released without stable housing, and 4 to 11% staying in a homeless shelter in the 2 years after being released. Sometimes they're denied for other housing because of their offense or conviction, such as a sexual offense, and some experience mental illness and being released without any medication. In preparation for release, generally they get to prepare for their release for months and can attend workshops and social programs for employment. They enroll in public assistance. They prepare to see doctors. They also obtain needed items like clothes and toiletries. They have to prepare resumes, and many have not worked in years, and they have little idea on where to apply for employment, as well as the hindrance for a criminal record, poor work history, no high school diploma, and poor health. After their release, a lot of them experience overstimulation with the outside world after seeing the same things over and over on the inside. Family is a big deal in the success of the individual, and most of their days in the first few weeks of being released are spent fulfilling basic needs. So, applying for food stamps, getting an ID card, seeing doctors or mental health counselors, and treatment programs, as well as meeting with probation and parole. Nearly 70% of older respondents, 45 years and older, were unstably housed in the first week after incarceration, compared to just 16 temporary or marginal housing. Respondents with a history of mental illness and addiction reported similar levels of marginal housing. Older respondents have a disadvantage as well as those who were reporting mental illness and addiction. Family taking in released inmates can also put the family at risk for violating a lease or overcrowding an already crowded house, as well as a strain on income. Finding regular income was the leading concern in the first 2 months after prison. For these individuals, employment helps to build pride, social status, and a daily routine. And for many, with employment being hard to find, some struggle not to fall back into bad habits from the stress of the lack of income or just to make money. Some of the obstacles that they face with finding employment is their criminal record, their poor work history. Some have no high school diploma, and others have poor health. They do get a savings from prison. So this savings is from a canteen account, and this is an account used for phone calls or to buy food and toiletries. And this is from money sent by family or earned from prison jobs. And it's paid upon the release from prison. And most of them left with less than $330. There are three broad patterns after the release of prison. So the first is social integration after the incarceration, and it requires that those recently released manage the stress of the transition. Many of them report the anxiety, loneliness, and alienation immediately after getting out. Also, shedding the habits and behaviors of the institution. The second is the first 6 months after prison release, ex-inmates received poverty-level incomes and relied heavily on the government benefits and family support. They receive government assistance, they live with family, receiving financial help from family, most by their mothers, grandmothers, or sisters. Elected officials have periodically limited the eligibility for public assistance of people with criminal records, so this makes it harder for them to get any type of assistance, such as food or housing. Older individuals in their late 40s and 50s were unstably housed and more disconnected from family, and those with mental illness and drug addiction also experienced greater isolation and marital hardship. They also received less family support and were more likely to be insecurely housed or living outside of regular households. They were more reliant on public assistance and less likely to be employed. So the transition from prison to the community was often accompanied by stress and hardship, but many spoke about the joys and happiness of getting out. So my questions for this reading are, what other programs do you think could be implemented to help with the transition from prison to the outside world? Do you think the state should help fund released inmates? And do you think the help provided should be limited by their offense?